In this video, we will be taking a look at everything that Apple announced this week: the new MacBooks, the new iPad, and the new studio displays. Welcome aboard. If you're watching on the replay, check for the timestamps down in the description if you want to jump around to a particular product. Otherwise, if you're here live, hello, I hope you are doing well and welcome in to the Creator Town Hall here for yet another week. My name is Pete Johns, and if you like this sort of stuff, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button to subscribe for more information. And if you've got any questions or comments as we go along, please drop them right here in the chat. Or if you're on the replay, leave me a comment. So, this first section is going to be a quick overview of everything that was announced. So if you're like, what Apple thing, what's changed, what's going on around here? Is it simple? Is it complicated? Well, they've added some layers. So there's some layers of complexity to the world of Apple and buying a new MacBook or buying a new iPad, but I'm going to explain it all without all the guff, without all the fancy shiny words and all the buttery smoothness. So let's dive on in. What's happened? Well, we've got a brand new entry to the MacBook lineup. It's called the MacBook Neo. It's a base entry-level model, and it starts at just $599, which is kind of unheard of for a Mac. It has its limitations, and we'll be deep diving into those as we go through the show. We also have the new MacBook Air. Yeah, the Air gets an upgrade to M5. You've got the M5 chip on the new MacBook Air. We'll be talking about that, why it's gone up in price by $100. Yeah, a little bit of inflation and SSDs and memory and all the other things that are increasing have finally hit the world of Apple. We'll be talking about that. MacBook Pro. Yeah, so we did have the M5 MacBook Pro, but now we've got the Pro with the Pro chip as well as the Max chip. And I'll explain why there are three different Pros and why the Pro is not really the Pro unless it's the Pro. Confused yet? Yeah, me too. Don't worry. We'll explain everything. The iPad Air gets an upgrade to M5 as well. The M5 silicon in the iPad Air will make it go super duper quick. Again, it has its limitations over the Pro model. And is it enough to boost you up if you're running a regular iPad? We'll talk about that as we go through as well. And new studio displays, which we'll spend a little bit of time on at the end of the show because they're not going to be for everyone, but they do definitely pack a punch. And if you are a high-end creator, you know you need this stuff. And that's kind of where we'll start here, is that if you are a pro, Apple have made it pretty easy for you. You buy a Pro, or you buy the Mac Studio if you're going a desktop, and then you buy the studio display, and you're set. You're set for life. You're all good in the hood. So you can go ahead and do that. But if for the rest of us, where are we left? What do we do? How do we navigate these murky waters? Well, that's what this video is all about. And again, if you would like to follow along, you can do so by using the links in the description if you're on the replay. Hello to the folks who are here live. Thank you to our wonderful moderator. I know, Apple confusing product lines. Never! You can indeed check out all my gear recommendations. And the reason I want to point this out early on is that whenever Apple put out new products, a lot of folks say to me, well, I don't need a new Apple product and I've got a good product, or I don't want the latest and greatest. Well, guess what? It's actually an amazing time to also go out and get a refurbished Apple product, because last year's model and the year before's model and the year before that model are all still really good. If Apple have done one thing with all these new releases and with the Apple Silicon and the M1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5 chip, they've made it so that you don't need the latest and greatest. To get things going, to run the software that you want, you don't need the latest and greatest. And good question from Brad, how long before my M1 2TB iPad will be extinct? It'll be a while, to be honest. The M series chip, like we normally see a pretty decent lifespan. And the M1 iPad's only been out for, what, 4 or 5 years now. It still packs a mean punch. And if you're using Logic Pro on your iPad or Final Cut Pro or GarageBand, of course, yeah, you're going to have enough power to keep doing that. And it's the same in the world of Mac. I've got an M2 Max Studio. I don't see myself upgrading that for another 5 years, maybe more. So it's not a matter of you must, but I wanted to do this show today here on the Creator Town Hall to let folks know what is new and I guess remove some of that FUD. Because Apple would love you to just go out and buy everything. They want you to buy all the products, and they want you to spend more than maybe you need to. And that's what we want to talk about. We want to make sure that you don't go out there and go just firing off willy-nilly, especially in 2026. Like, who's got the disposable income to just throw around cash willy-nilly? Not me, not this little duck, and probably not you too. So we are going to dive on in and let's talk first of all about MacBook Neo. This is probably the most interesting. Look, we'll refresh the page because it does this. It's like, get out of here, iPhone 17e. Oh, I didn't mention iPhone 17e. In the overview, there's a new iPhone too. We'll be looking at that as we get towards the end of the show. I knew I would miss out on one thing. So yes, new iPhone. Because there were 3 days of announcements that kind of got buried a little bit, that there is a brand new iPhone 17e as well, but we will get to that a little later. So yeah, the MacBook Neo. Hello, Neo. And look, a brand new font. So not only, and I don't know, I get the feeling that there was like a research team that spent 4 months workshopping that font to get exactly the right font that would appeal to the kids that are buying this laptop. And why do I say kids? Because this is your student machine. This is your Chromebook killer. This is something that wants to take on and tackle all of those low entry level laptops that folks are using. And it's very obvious once you start diving into the weeds that that's exactly what exactly what Apple are looking for. Because colors, for starters. Yep, and all color match, so your keyboard matches yep, and there you go. The very first photo that they show us is a classroom, and all the students are rocking their MacBooks because of course they are, so yeah. And look, you do see this. You'd see a lot more in, especially in sort of high school education, a lot more sort of, again, Chromebooks. Chromebooks kind of rule the roost when it comes to education, as well as cheaper Windows laptops. I guess the slight drawback here is that a lot of those are touchscreen. Like my kids use touchscreen Windows laptops. The Mac's not a touchscreen. But it definitely is going to go up against the iPad. iPad with a keyboard versus this. This is actually cheaper. People have done the shopping and they've done the numbers. And if you get just a regular vanilla iPad with a Magic Keyboard, you're already spending more than this costs. And then you're running iPad OS and not Mac OS. That's the big selling point of this one. It runs Mac OS. We'll talk about the limitations in just a jiffy though. But out of the box, it looks nice. No notch, all aluminum case. Aluminium, I keep saying aluminium case, 13-inch screen, so it is their smallest screen, the smallest display on a laptop, but for a lot of folks, this is going to be adequate, and that's how I'd sum it up. Apple would have not put this in their marketing speech, but adequate. Apple's most adequate laptop ever. You will be amazed at how this just works and does the bare minimum of what you need. But the reason that it can be so cheap, if you're wondering, how do they make this $599? That looks a lot like a MacBook Air. Why so cheap? Well, the reason is that it is the iPhone processor. Yes, it has the same processor that was in last year's iPhone Pro, the A18 Pro. And how can they make a laptop with an iPhone chip? Well, because it's the Apple Silicon, Apple's A-series silicon chips. I was saying the other day that the A-series chips, these are Apple's in-house silicon, they walked so that M1 could run. And when I say walk, they walk pretty fast. They're like those Olympic walkers that do the bum shuffle and have the hips and the shoulders and everything going on. You know the ones. You watch the Olympics, I'm sure. I know it was Winter Olympics, but Summer Olympics. Yes, the phone book. I so wanted them to call it the phone book. Yep. Apple's brand new adequate phone book. And then kids are like, no, they never do that because kids don't know what a phone book is. Like, that, no way that any of those students have ever opened a phone book, have ever opened a White Pages or a Yellow Pages in their life. Maybe yellowpages.com. Love at first Mac, and it is a little bit of the Fisher Price My First Mac, this one. And look, let's sort of tear off the Band-Aid. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is this going to be for a creator? This is the Creator Town Hall, right? Pete, this is the Creator Town Hall. Is this good for creators? This is good for creators the same way that your phone is good for GarageBand and recording. So if you recorded on your phone in GarageBand and you wanted to try out GarageBand on the Mac and you've got an iPhone and you need a new laptop, this would be a great thing to get. If you want to run Logic Pro, if you want to do Final Cut Pro editing, if you want to do high level, lots of plugins, lots of externals, lots of VSTs, lots of AUs, no, this is not the machine for you. And we'll tell you why in just a jiffy. We'll get there. I promise you. So, closer look at this thing. What do you got? You got colors. So, you got silver. You got a different silver. They call it indigo. You've got citrus, which is the yellowy color. And you got pink, which they call blush. So, yeah, look, at least there's colors. At least there is a semblance of color here from Apple. They haven't just gone, you want silver or gray or black or white. No. Although I do wish they'd have white. Like the old, the original iBooks, the white ones, the white plasticky looking ones. That would be cool if they brought that back. Durable design. It's made with aluminium, 60% recycled content by weight, the most in any Apple product. So you'll feel good when you use it. The display, an outstanding resolution of 500 nits of brightness. Now, there's some caveats here. This is not the brightest screen, so your MacBook Air and your MacBook Pro are going to have better screens. It doesn't have the True Tone, the P3 True Tone coloring, so you've just got sRGB. If that means nothing to you, you probably don't care. But if you're doing design work, if you're doing graphics work, this is not the display for you. And yeah, 13-inch and notchless. So yeah, because they've gone the slightly bigger bezels, so they've got the webcam up the top there, which we'll talk about in a minute. Keyboard and trackpad. This is not a backlit keyboard. Again, I'm just going to point out every time there's something that causes this to be a bit cheaper, and the cheapness here is that it's not a backlit keyboard. It is a straight keyboard, although it is color coordinated. So that's nice. At least they match the keyboard with the color of the machine that you're using, which you can see there. There you go. The Touch ID, this is the other place where they have reduced the cost because you have Touch ID on the keyboard of the upgraded model. And I'll show you what that means when we do the comparison of MacBooks in a little while. But you will only get that if you pay the $6.99 US instead of the $5.99, which, by the way, I was a bit shocked that it's $8.99 Australian and $10.99 with the button. So we pay the 100. It's not an extra 100. It's an extra $200. It shouldn't be 200. It should be 150. But Apple could not possibly price a laptop at 1,049. That would just be unexcusable. Everything has to end in a 99 or something. Camera. It's got a potato camera. Look, it's not the 12 megapixel center stage camera you get on your laptops. It's the older 1080p camera. It'll do the job. It won't follow you around like the creepy, stalky center stage, and it's not 4K, and it's not going to be great for high resolution, but it's a 1080p webcam for video conferencing. Nothing else. Mic and speakers, again, 2 side-firing speakers, so it's not sort of the front and bottom firing speakers that you get on the other MacBooks. They say that it's going to sound great, and it does support spatial audio, so we will see. We haven't heard these yet, and do let me know. Let me know in the comments if you think I should get one of these. Should I be the guinea pig? Should I check these, take one for the team, and actually buy one of these? Again, you've got dual microphones there to isolate and enhance your voice. So compared to, when we do the comparison, you'll see that your MacBook Airs and Pros have 3 or 4 mic arrays. So, yeah. Connectivity, you've got 2 USB-C ports and a headphone jack. Now, this is for those that are connecting up stuff, living the dongle life, using external drives, because out of the gate, this thing only has 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. And if the first thing you say about that is, oh, well, I'll just grab a Thunderbolt SSD, plug that in, and I've instantly got some extra terabytes. The problem with that is that these are USB-C ports, not Thunderbolt, and one of them is only a USB 2 speed, which is only 480 megabits per second, which is not quick. So anything you connect to that, look, if you connect an audio interface or you connect a mouse, I guess, or if you connect a better web camera or something like that, you'll be fine. The bandwidth, the throughput will be fine. But anything that you want that's high speed is not going to be fine. It will be no bueno for you. So, and don't forget, you need one of those for charging. So you really only got like, even though people are like, well, two USB-C, you really only got one if you need to plug in and charge, because one of those you'll be using for your charger and the other one, and they're not labeled either, by the way. They don't really want you to know that one's faster, one's USB 3 speed and one's USB 2. So yeah, there's that. So that is your MacBook Neo. It is the A18 Pro processor. It is 256 gig of storage. It is 8 gigabytes of RAM. It will do things. It will do the stuff. Again, there you go. Student. And I did find it funny that in the was it this part here? They actually show it, look, with stickers on it. Ooh, Apple never show their products with stickers because they don't think that anyone would ever do that. Battery life, 16 hours. It's lower than your Mac. So again, the cutbacks here is that they had to put a smaller battery in there, so you don't get as much charge in there. Remember, you will be charging stuff up with your USB-C port. Look, 500 nits of brightness, it's acceptable. 1 billion colors. Yeah, look, that's just what a monitor does. So yeah, you got that. 1080p camera, it does the job again, and the microphones and speakers will do the job. And again, it's all about AI. So it's pretty funny that we only got down to AI when we got down here. So yes, and privacy and Mac OS. So this is the thing. It is for, who is this for? That's what we're going to say about every laptop, and then we'll do a big comparison at the end. Who is this for? This is for someone who's never owned a Mac. This is the Mac that I would have bought if it was 2020 all over again. Because in 2020, I bought the Mac Mini M1, the base model Mac Mini M1, which basically had about these specs. You could probably very accurately compare an M1 chip with the A18 Pro. In fact, the A18 Pro is probably better than an M1 chip. This is probably, it'll be interesting once we start seeing the benchmarks come out, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is better than an M1, maybe even an M2. So it's definitely going to have some horsepower. And again, the price is just ridiculous. This is absolutely aggressively marketed as affordable. And you'll see that is going to be, with these new Apple products and these new announcements, that's very much a new thing for Apple. They are pushing in 2026 with the challenges that we're having in the economy and the challenges around the world. They know that very few people, or a lot less people, have $2,000 or $3,000 to spend on a new laptop. But a lot of folks can put together $600 or $700 to join the ecosystem. And it's all about that. It's the ecosystem play. If you've been around Apple for a long time, the way they get you is you get your first iPhone or iPad. So in our household, my wife got an iPhone and I got an iPad when that came out, and that was like our first foray. And that was back in the 3GS and iPad second generation days. And then you realize that, you start buying apps and you start using Apple's iCloud and you start like paying for things, and you start realizing that the ecosystem helps you cross over between your iPhone and your iPad. iMessage lets you just pick up a device and use it. All the stuff, all the apps you have on one is on the other. Family sharing means that me and my wife and now our kids can all use Apple devices and all share the same purchases. So yeah, you're in the ecosystem, and then you dive into Mac, and you know what? It's working. Because I was preparing for this show yesterday, and my daughter, 16, walks in. She's never owned a Mac, but she's used mine, and she has an iPad and an iPhone, and she looked at this and said, yeah, I could buy one of them. I could afford that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. They've hit the absolute target market, target demographic, and done it perfectly, because she uses iMessage. She is in the Apple ecosystem. She buys apps, and she uses iCloud storage for so yeah. I say all that to say they've done pretty well with this. What have we got folks saying? I don't imagine this would do well with music or video, but if you just want to surf the web, check your socials, write documents, exactly, solid for the price. And a bit like Mark does, which is using GarageBand iOS to sort of capture ideas and stuff and then sends it over to a Mac and then use it on Logic Pro. This would be great for that. Say you had a Mac Studio or a Mac Mini as your desktop in your studio, and you were on the go, and you wanted to just fire up GarageBand and throw down a few ideas, I think that this would work well for that. I don't think it'll be your production machine for video or audio or any high-end stuff. Yeah, well, that's going to be it. 8 GB of RAM is going to be the limitation because even the upgraded model, as you'll see a bit later, has 8 GB of RAM, which means that if you want to start running plugins, you will struggle. Although, if you recall, when the Mac Mini M1 came out, people were running Logic Pro on the absolute base model with like 100 plugins, and it was doing fine. And what they say about this one is it's definitely a step up on any Intel-based machine, and the Intel-based machines could run Logic Pro. So it'll be interesting. I almost want to get one just to check it out. A reviewer noticed that when you highlight text on the Neo, if you highlight, in the color you're using, the citrus color it's an acquired taste, isn't it? It's not for everyone. All the software updates are released as 26.3.1 to include new studio displays, including the new XDR. We'll be talking about those in a little while. Yeah, forget a Thunderbolt 5 SSD. You will be out of luck if you're using Thunderbolt 5. Still rocking a MacBook Pro 2022, and that's solid. That's solid, Ricky. That's the thing. I don't think any of these machines that we're looking at today are for folks that are in an M series. If you're in an M1 or an M2, or in an M3 or an M4 or an M5. No, I don't think these are really for you. This is definitely a play to get people on it, the final grasp of you're still on an Intel Mac. Well, look, you can get into at least a silicon one for $599, or the MacBook Air that we'll be looking at in just a jiffy. Still using the MacBook Pro 17-inch, yeah. Old school. Kicking it old school, Sal. And again, there's studios that are running like Pro Tools 7 in Nashville. They're not connected to the internet. They don't ever upgrade or add or change any of their plugins because it just works. And they're putting out hit records. So as far as creators go, we get all like lathered up about the new latest and greatest. And what I want to do is let you know that if it works, use what works for you right now. That's going to help you make your best music. Don't worry so much about this sort of stuff. Yes, it is. It's the Chromebook killer. It's kind of what I live with and what Apple won't say, but they kind of will. And yeah, that's a great point. It is $100 cheaper for the education price. Yes, the backlit keyboard. Yeah, so that's the limitations. Backlit keyboard's a limitation. USB ports that are not high speed, no Thunderbolt's a limitation. The screen is a limitation, 13-inch and not the greatest display, not the greatest brightness. You are having some trade-offs here. The base model not having Touch ID. I cannot personally go back to not having Touch ID on my keyboard. I only buy keyboards that have Touch ID. I think I paid an extra $50 to make sure that my keyboard for my Mac Studio has Touch ID. And if you don't know why that's important, every time that I want to use a passkey to log into my bank, to log into PayPal, to log into any secure server, anytime I want to pay for something and put my credit card details in, it's all my fingerprint. And it is so much more secure and also so much more convenient. So entering a password every single time or entering PINs or using authenticator apps is fine until it's not, until you are just irritated by it. So I would 100%, just to finish off on the Neo, I would 100%, if you're going to buy one, by the way, pre-ordering available now, and you'll get it on the 11th. So if you're pre-ordering, you'll pick your color. I'd probably actually go indigo because I'm a bit conservative like that. I would almost say don't even consider getting one with just the lock button with no Touch ID, because not only are you only getting 256 gigabytes of storage, which will fill amazingly quickly, you are not getting the Touch ID. And it's the Magic keyboard, not the full-on keyboard. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm talking too much. I get so choked up about the glory that is Apple. Not true. Folks do think that, yeah, you're such an Apple fan person. Yeah, you must be getting paid to talk about it. No, I can honestly say, hand on heart, that whilst Apple have given me loans of gear because they want me to use it so that I'll tell you what it's like, they have not once paid me, and they have not once told me what to or not to say. For everything that I could say about Apple and about other companies, the one thing that I can, again, hand on heart say is that, yeah, Apple are not telling me to say anything. And I'm critical. When Apple do something great, I say great. When Apple do something that I don't agree with, that I don't think is right, I'm critical of that. And that's the way it should be. I'm not a journalist, but I play well on YouTube. and I want to let you know that I am 100% independent. Happy St. Patrick's Day weekend. Yes, it is St. Paddy's Day on Tuesday, I think, is it? Tuesday? Yeah, I've already seen it. My local has a great Irish pub. Well, it's not quite my local. Nearby, there's a pub I like called the Norwood Hotel. It's called Finn McCool's. And you can go and they have $10. Used to be, they used to have $7 Guinness in Kilkenny, and then it went 8, and then it went 9, and now it's 10. And that's literally in the last 4 years. Every year it goes up by $1, but it's still the cheapest place in town to get good quality Guinness and Kilkenny. BrandSmart's got Samsung Galaxy Tab S9 Plus. Well, that's the thing, and there's other options, aren't there? I guess the challenge is for music creation. I don't know this for a fact because I haven't tried it in a long time, but Android and tablets, they just, GarageBand and now with Logic Pro, it's just next level. Like Apple kind of own the creative space. I'm sure that there's apps for video editing. I'm sure that there's apps for audio on your Galaxy and on your Android tablets. I just haven't seen them. And the reports I've got from folks is that they're not as good. But hey, again, if you use it and it works, go for it. Absolutely go for it. So yeah, $699, I would say, the 512 gigabyte MacBook Neo. And yeah, $100. And again, see, Apple wouldn't really want me to say this, but if you or anyone in your household or in your immediate family or in your circle has a student email address or student identification, you get the education price. Simple as that. Teachers, students, yeah, you get the education price. So if you're using it for education, you'll save yourself another 100 clams on that one. Right, let's talk MacBook Air. By the way, if you're enjoying this, or if you're just liking the fact that I'm giving you the information, warts and all, feel free to hit the thumbs up button. It helps out. What it does see is it tells the YouTube robots to go and tell the other YouTube robots to push this show out to people. So if there's someone out there that's confused by this range of MacBooks and this range of new Apple gear, which I would suggest is a lot of folks, then hopefully this will go right into their feed and they'll be like, oh, which Apple? Small, medium, large? What do I choose? So thank you for that. I appreciate you hitting the thumb. Let's talk MacBook Air, right? So MacBook Air got an upgrade. Not a huge upgrade, but, and in fact, the price went up. We'll talk about all those things as we go through the MacBook Air. So, the might takes flight. It's now supercharged by M4. M5, is it significantly different from the M4? No. So, do we need to spend ages telling you what a MacBook Air is? No, because outside of the chip and the battery life, the reason that says M5 and that says 18 hours battery is that everything else remains pretty much the same. So yes, it's your AI tool, but here's the thing. This is the headline. What Apple chose to do this time around is simplify the range. I know, simplified. So they removed the 256 gigabyte model. So the base model on the previous one was $999. It had 256 gigabytes of storage and 16 gigabytes of RAM. They have changed that, and the new version is now 512 gigabytes out of the box. It's also $100 more expensive. So this is an interesting play because the margin on this, and again, this is why Apple wouldn't necessarily like me sort of pointing this out, but the reason they've done this is that they think people can actually handle the $1,099. It still sounds close enough to $1,000 without sort of freaking people out, and they can push that they get 512 gigabytes of storage. And the cost between a 256 chip, because again, it's still got to be a module, right? 256 to 512, despite the fact that when you upgrade your storage and upgrade your memory on a Mac, it costs you a lot. It really doesn't cost them much more at all. So let's say that this is an extra $100. For you, it's probably an extra $5 or $10 in the actual production cost. So it is in their better interest to offer a $1,099 laptop with 512 than a $999 laptop with only 256. Because remember, Apple are still being hit, not as hard as others, but they're still being hit by a lot of these increases in the raw ingredients, let alone the components that go into memory and storage. So do keep that in mind. Look, there's not a lot to talk. If you've seen a MacBook Air, you know what this is like. It's basically the same as the previous version, 13-inch or 15-inch display, and the 13-inch is actually a 13.6-inch. So it is bigger than the 13-inch. It's called 13-inch there, but it's bigger than the 13 inches that are on the Neo. It's actually 13.6, so almost 14 inches there. It has MagSafe charging. So in talking in difference, so why would you go from $6.99? I'm going to call it $6.99, right? Because $5.99, I just don't think anyone should buy that. $6.99 to $10.99. Obviously, you are spending, got to do the maths real quick, $400 more. What do you get for $400? That's the question a lot of folks are saying. You get MagSafe charging. So that means your 2 ports are free for when you are charging your device, unlike the MacBook Neo, which you will be left with 1 slower port, because these are Thunderbolt. These are Thunderbolt 5 ports. That means you can hook up your very high-speed, expensive SSDs to them, and they'll go great. You got the 4 different colors. This time you got midnight, silver, more different silver, and a bluey silver. So you've got the choices of those. It's actually slightly thinner, believe it or not, than the Neo. The Neo is slightly more chunky, again, just because of the cost savings of the components that they're putting in there. They've got, and the Air is designed, you know, from way back when Steve Jobs pulled it out of a manila envelope, it's been designed to be thin and light. So yeah, so there's your 15-inch, there's your 13-inch. It is great for watching movies on your bed. Apparently, and slide it into your backpack, of course. M5, we've talked about M5. It is just the latest and greatest chip from Apple. This is not the Pro chip. This is not the Max chip. This is a straight M5 chip. And if they could please stop comparing things to PC laptops with Intels and M1s. But yeah, look, it is faster. If you've got an M1 MacBook Air or even the M2, this is going to be a significant upgrade. Again, if you're running M3 or M4, I don't think you're in any need or any rush for upgrading anything anytime soon. AI is good, multitasking is good. Yes, the M5 chip is great. Up to 18 hours of battery life, so very similar to your Neo, but less than the Pro, which we'll get to in a jiffy. Built for AI from the silicon up. So you'll notice here that there's a lot more mention of AI and a lot more sort of heavy lifting stuff mentioned with the Air, but that was definitely not prioritized with the Neo. And everything else, look, you know this, continuity, all the other reasons why you do that. So the MacBook Air, very little has changed on this. Same, very nice display, 2 high-speed ports, nice keyboard, backlit keyboard, and trackpad, and yeah, just an all-rounder. And this is, so who is this for? This is for most people, even creators. Like people say, oh, should I get the Air or the Pro? Yeah, even for a creator, now that it's 512 and 16 gig by default, that's the base model, I think that's enough to join the party. I think I would probably upgrade it to a terabyte of storage and maybe even go to 24 or 32 gigabytes of RAM. And the problem with that is by the time you do all that, you're in Pro territory. You're almost at the price of the Pro, which is what we're going to talk about in a jiffy. So the MacBook Air, it is a good machine. It is slightly more expensive than it used to be, but I'm actually pretty happy and okay with that because I think that extra storage does actually make up for it. I would pay the extra $100 to go 512 over 256 because I've played the 256 gig storage game, and that's barely enough to install GarageBand and all of its sound packs, to be honest. How much are the GarageBand and the sound packs? They're about 100, I think, gigabytes total, or maybe not quite that much, maybe 50 or 60. Either way, you're using 20, 30% of your space, and that's before you've even created your first project. And forget about Logic Pro. If you've only got 256 gig of storage, Logic Pro would be your storage. Logic Pro and a few projects and a couple of plugins, and you're at 256 gigabytes of storage. So do keep all of that in mind. I don't know why they added an extra copy. The specs are just terrible, but I guess they want. And that's the thing. They want to target every price point. It's not for us. Actually, I think it's not for creators. It's not for folks like us, which is fine. But it does want that. Trevor Bear, hello to you. I hope you are doing well. And we do this weekend. Oh, so in Connecticut? Yeah, in Connecticut. And I'm sure in New England and places where they have big Irish contingent and Boston. I'm sure it's like the weekend of celebrations. You start with an eye-opener Guinness on the Saturday, and then you finish off on the Sunday night. We're talking about St. Patrick's Day, by the way. For those that are just joining us here, again, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you get value out of this one. If you have any questions or if you have your own comments, we are interactive, so we will do that as we go through. And if you're watching on the replay, you'll see handy dandy timestamps. If you're here live, I'm so sorry. You have to put up with listening to everything I have to say. Should we talk Pro? Let's talk MacBook Pro. Fast runs in the family. So the MacBook Pro got an upgrade. And again, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this because I've talked about the M4 MacBook Pro. I've talked about the M2 MacBook Pro and the M1 MacBook Pro. There's not a lot of difference. Not a lot's changed. They kind of perfected the format and now they're just running with it. But you might be thinking, don't we already have a MacBook Pro M5? Didn't you showcase one the other day? Yeah, you're not hallucinating. You're not making things up. The M5 MacBook Pro already existed. All this has done is added the Pro and the Max chips. So I said at the start, the MacBook Pro line is the most confusing line of computers because the Pro model is not Pro until it has the Pro. I know. What a show. So here's how it breaks down. The MacBook Pro comes in not Pro model, which is just the M5 chip, the straight M5 chip, which makes it quite comparable with the MacBook Air. It's not a lot different from that. It's got a few extra things that we'll talk about. But in terms of its performance, very similar. It's almost the exact same chip. What you can also do is upgrade your Pro to a Pro. And again, this is why it's so stupid that it's called the MacBook Pro and the chip is called a Pro. It shouldn't be the Pro, Max, and Ultra. It should be MacBook Pro with the what another one? Mega. The Mega, the Max, and the Ultra. And don't get me started on the fact that the Ultra is higher end than the Max. I thought Max was maximum. How is Ultra is above Max? It's like having the Infinity and then the Infinity plus one. Yeah. No, it makes no sense, but someone in marketing on a much higher pay grade than me got paid a lot of money to decide, let's make it the MacBook Pro with M5, the MacBook Pro with M5 Pro, and the MacBook Pro with M5 Max. Clear as mud? Clear as mud. All right, let's go and have a look at the MacBook Pro M5. So yeah, there's the difference. That's why it's got the three there. So you've got the M5 chip, the M5 Pro, the M5 Max. The Ultra, not available at this point in time in a MacBook. Why? Because it requires cooling, and they don't want to make the MacBook Pro chunky enough to allow for the cooling. That's why the the M5 Ultra is only available in, at this stage, the Mac Studio and the Mac Pro. So yeah, you can do video editing, and of course you can. You can use it at airports. It's allowed. And you can use it while surfing. No. You can pair it up with your iPhone, and you'll notice here that now they've got an iPhone Pro to go with the Pro, so you can be a full-on Pro and flex your Pro status. A closer look at the machine. The sizes this one comes in now, we're talking, you got a 14-inch and you got a 16-inch size. Colors, silver or black. No. Look, the space black looks quite nice on these. I have the space black and I quite like it. But then again, I'm a very plain and boring and conservative guy, at least when it comes to the color of my things. The display, this is where you get the next level. You get the Liquid Retina XDR display. Remember how we said that the MacBook Neo has 500 nits of peak brightness? 1600 nits of peak brightness and HDR, and you get the full 60 hertz display, 120 hertz display on this one. The ProMotion display on the Pro device. Connectivity, every MacBook Pro comes with Thunderbolt 4 or 5 ports. 4 or 5. That's interesting. It must be, I think it's Thunderbolt 4 on the M5 and 5 on the Pro, and I think that's what it is. Anyway, do check that. If you've got, I don't have anything Thunderbolt 5. I barely have Thunderbolt 4. So if you do, check it out. An HDMI port, a MagSafe port, an SD card slot, a headphone jack. Yes, so you've got all the peripheral connections that you could desire. And that's probably the biggest thing. That's why the Pro makes the Pro a Pro, is because you actually have that. As opposed to the MacBook Air, where as soon as you've plugged in one thing, you kind of only got one port left. And HDMI, I know some people are like, HDMI is so old school. I still love having HDMI. It just works. I was using my old projector that I had the other day, And it was only that I had my MacBook Pro with an HDMI output that I could plug it into my adapter that goes into my projector, because my projector be so old, yeah, it's not taking no Thunderbolt or USB-C or anything like that. There you go. Yes, thank you, Mark. Regular M5 is Thunderbolt 4. So that means your MacBook Air is also Thunderbolt 4. So keep that in mind. You only get Thunderbolt 5 on the newer Pro and Max models. Camera, you get the better camera. You get the 12 megapixel center stage camera that does the creepy follow you around, keep you in frame thing. Mic and speakers, studio quality 3 mic array and 6 speaker sound that supports spatial audio and Dolby Atmos. And I gotta say, I'm an audio guy, right? I love my audio and I care about having good quality audio. I actually really like the quality of audio you get from the MacBook Pro. There are times where we'll be sitting outside having a quiet beverage and I'll just take my MacBook Pro out there and use that as the speaker. Is it quite as good as a decent Bluetooth speaker? Not really, but is it really convenient and punches way above its weight for a laptop? Yes, I've had some terrible laptop speakers. Like my old Lenovo sounded like, well, A, you couldn't hear the music over the fan whirring constantly, and B, yeah, it sounded like you were playing it through a bunch of celery. Yeah, celery. Durability, so 100% recycled aluminium in the enclosure. MacBook Pro is built to withstand daily use and designed to last. And again, I can attest to that. I had the original M1 Pro on loan from Apple, and I had that for almost a year in the end. I think they forgot I had it, but they eventually asked for it back. And that thing looked as good on the day I gave it back. And look, I look after my stuff, but being aluminium as opposed to plastic and pretty scratch proof as well, yeah, it looked fabulous. I was proud. I sent it back to them. I'm like, they're going to be able to sell this one as a refurb. No problems whatsoever. So yes, you got the 5, the Pro, Max. You can pick. Pick your quick. Pick which quick you want to go with. 3 chips, second to none. And look, the reason it's talking about the different chips and what they can deliver and what they can do is that there's nothing else new here. It's all the same. But who's it for? Again, let's go the basics. Who is the MacBook Pro for? It's probably for you. It is for you if you want to just set it and forget it. If you want to buy a device and be confident that you can use that one device for the next 5 years, 8 years, probably 10 years, then a MacBook Pro is it. It legitimately is built to last. Again, I bought my own MacBook Pro and it still looks pristine. In fact, it's just under here. Can I reach it? Yeah, I can. So because I have the M5 on loan from Apple at the moment, my quote unquote old M4 is right here. This is the Space Blacks, as well as talking about before. So this is my M5 Pro, and this is my M4 Pro, and with the exception of a few fingerprints, which again is just because it's been sitting gathering dust because I haven't been using it. Yeah, it is just in immaculate condition. Why can't I open it? I just said all that. It's because I don't clean my screen off enough. This is a good reminder for me to get at this with some LCD screen cleaner. But yes, the MacBook Pro, it could be for you, but it'll cost you. It'll cost you. Alrighty. Question, are 512 the least storage amount for any creators, even in the Mac guide with M4 Max, where you mentioned at least 1 terabyte? Yeah, look, I recommend 1 terabyte. I think I've said in the past 512 is acceptable. I would always recommend, I would put it this way, I would never buy a computer with less than 1 terabyte in 2026. Personally, because I have a lot of files and I like having my files locally and handy, and I've got more than 512 gigabytes worth of stuff. But I'm a YouTube creator. I'm flying content around. I've got videos and audios and all the large files everywhere. So, yeah, I need it. Could you get away with 512? Yeah, you could. It really depends on you and what you're creating. Yes, the Mac Studio is definitely a very, very nice machine if you are using and look, this is what I think. Do I really need my MacBook Pro now? Could I get away with a MacBook Neo for the stuff I do on the go? Pretty much. Like, I bought the MacBook Pro because I'm like, well, what if I do want to do audio production? I haven't done it. You know what I use my MacBook Pro for most? Thumbnails. Setting up YouTube, doing live stream setups, answering YouTube comments, replying to emails. Would the MacBook Neo crush all of those tasks for a third the price? It absolutely would. Hello, Mark C. Yes, space does add up very, very quickly. Before we dive into the next section, if you're enjoying this one, if you're getting some value, if this is information that you need, or even if it's not, but you just like to chat about new gear, hit the thumbs up button. I would appreciate you big time if you could do that. We've got a bit of disparity here. A lot of people are watching and not many people are liking. So if you can do me a solid, if you've forgotten to do it, go ahead and hit the thumb button for me now. I use Canva. I'm a Canva user. But I'm considering, with the Apple Creator Studio, I'm considering checking out, I've blanked on the name of it. So I use LumaFusion for my video editing. I'm not into Final Cut Pro yet. Pixelmator Pro. So I'm considering checking out Pixelmator Pro. I just haven't had the time to do it. Is Logic Pro good on the MacBook Neo? I don't know. I kind of want to get one and try it out. I think it will. So the MacBook Neo would compare to like a MacBook Air M1. I think the A18 Pro that you get in that and the specs is like getting a base level MacBook Air M1. And the MacBook Air M1 did run Logic Pro, but the problem was with the 8 gigabytes of RAM, you run out of horsepower when it comes to running plugins and anything of the session instruments or anything that you might want to use. And the 256 gigabytes of storage, you would definitely need at least the 512 in order to install and run Logic Pro with any sort of awesomeness there. What OBS Studio is and why I downloaded it. That's a great question. You probably wanted to get into live streaming and you downloaded OBS, which is Open Broadcaster Software. It is an open source broadcasting software solution. I use something called Ecamm Live, which is similar, but a little bit easier to use. OBS is great if you want something that costs you $0.00. You want to be able to do live streaming or even just recording or voice or screen recording. You can use OBS. Search on YouTube. Search OBS beginner tutorial. The other options you have a StreamYard as well, which someone was asking about before, which I also use on the regular because it works. For guests, if I've got people on this show, I'll always use StreamYard instead. Right, let's do some comparisons. So, comparison time. Funnily enough, I went straight to the compare site and it's like it read my mind. What has it done? Well, it's compared the MacBook Neo, the A18 Pro chip, the MacBook Air 13-inch M5, and the MacBook Pro 14-inch M5. So the base models of all three of these. And I thought this is a good place to start because you'll notice the reason the thumbnail basically had these three machines and small, medium, and large on them is Apple have done the classic 3-option for you. And this is really, really, really smart. So have you ever gone to subscribe to something and there's 3 levels of subscription? There's like bronze, silver, and gold, or there's like base, standard, and extreme. And what do? They make the base so cheap that it's almost irresistible, but it has lots of limitations. They make the high end absolutely next level amazing, but out of the price range of most folks. And then they give you this wonderful gooey sweet spot right in the middle where you're like, so for only an extra $400, I get all those additional features with the Air. But it's another $600 if I want to go all the way up to the MacBook Pro. So it's actually very smart marketing. It's part of basically behavioral economics. Well, generally humans, when faced with 3 options, will choose the middle one because we don't want to go the absolute lowest and we think that we're going to get ripped off if we go the highest. So that is what you need to think about going into these comparisons. So what can we do here? We can pre-order all of these. Now, the reason that one says buy is you can buy the M5 MacBook Pro. It's available right now, whereas these two are on pre-order and not available yet. If you want the MacBook M5 Pro, then you have to pre-order that. And if you want the M5 Ultra Pro, you do have to also pre-order it. So quick look. Let's do the comparison. So you've got your chips there. The chip is the same. So for these two, you get a XDR display, 14.2 inches compared to 13.6 on the Liquid Retina display on the Air. And your Neo has just a 13-inch Liquid Retina display, which is not as bright and was not as good quality. And there's your chips. So Here's the difference. This is where it starts getting into the weeds. People are asking about GarageBand or Logic Pro or Final Cut Pro. The challenge here is you've actually got what they call a binned processor here. So the original A18 Pro was 6-core CPU, 6-core GPU. For a phone, that's just nuts. That's mental. That's next level cool. Because a phone with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 6-core CPU, 6-core GPU absolutely flies along. For what the phone needs to do, for what it needs to produce, for the software it needs to run, that is outstanding. For a laptop, it's okay. It's still better than what they were running on Intel stuff, but as you can see, the jump up to M5, where you've instead got a 10-core CPU or an 8-core GPU, or the 10-core, the slightly better version of the M5 on the MacBook Pro, yeah, you're going to see a difference. Having only a 6-core CPU processing and 8 gigabytes of RAM compared to 10-core CPU and 16 gigabytes of RAM, yeah, that's where your things like your plugins and things like your higher-end apps are going to start to struggle. So you don't need to know much about that or much about why, except that in this particular case, the numbers mean better. So you're going to get better performance out of this one, than this one, than this one. Just because the numbers are higher. So you can get, the storage from 1 terabyte. So this is why the Pro starts to stack up, because if you change the MacBook Air from the 512 to the 1 terabyte, yeah, it starts getting up there in price, which I'll show you in a sec. The Touch ID, you only get that on the 512 gigabyte model, which is why I keep saying the Neo needs to be the $699 model. If you go the $599 model, no bueno, don't do it. So there's just more information about the chip and all the different things that it can do and what it has. The other big thing to look at here, not only do you have less CPUs, less performance cores, less GPUs, but your memory bandwidth, which is basically the fatness of your pipes. So if you're thinking of like having to run something, the memory bandwidth is how much at any given time can it go through. It doesn't matter how much memory you have, if it can't get from the CPU to the GPU to the SSD to actually process it, it's not going to work well. So 60 gigabyte per second memory bandwidth on the Neo, 153, almost 3 times as much memory bandwidth on your Air and your Pro. That is going to make a difference. And again, because the A-series chip was designed for a phone, on your phones and on your iPads, that's fine. That's enough memory bandwidth. But as soon as you start running high-end desktop apps, it cannot be enough. It can actually be underperforming. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Apple Intelligence, it does a thing. Memory, so yes, you do only get 8 gigabytes versus the 16 as your base, which is important. Storage, you can only go up to 512 on your Neo, whereas you can go right up to 4 terabytes on either the Air or the Pro. And your display, we've already talked about that ad nauseum, but yeah, you get a lot better display on the Pro. As you can see, the difference between the Air and the Neo displays is not much, but you do only get the sRGB, as we talked about before. You don't get the wide color P3 and the True Tone technology. What does the core thing do? So the number of cores is basically the number of processors. So if you think about, remember when you had Pentiums? They were a single core processor. Then you had the Pentium Duo, which was like a dual core processor. And then you went quad core, and now we're octo core, and now we're like 20. I don't even know what you call a 20 core, like the high end ones. So cores is just the number. It's the number. Exactly. It's the center of the apple. It has all the seeds. Gold. Size and weight. So yep, your Pros are going to be chunkier and bigger. That's not surprising. They weigh more. They got more stuff inside. They got more power. They weigh more. Your cameras, you get the same camera on the Air and the Pro. You get the potato camera on the Neo. Audio, you go from a high-fidelity 6-speaker sound system to a 4-speaker sound system down to a dual-speaker sound system. Keyboard and trackpad, you get the backlit Magic Keyboard there. You get the Touch ID. You get the ambient light sensor. And you get this is the other thing we didn't mention with the Neo. The multi-touch trackpad, you don't get the force touch. So if you've used one of the newer Magic Keyboards or newer laptops, you get that force touch where it actually can determine like the haptic feedback and it will sort of pop back up. This is more like your old school trackpad. So they haven't given you the force touch trackpad. So you can't use force clicks, acceleration, pressure sensitive, multi-touch. It's just basic multi-touch trackpad. It's like what you'd get on like an old Logitech trackpad for that one. Here's where it gets interesting. Your wireless, you only get Bluetooth 5.3 on the Pro, but you get and Wi-Fi 6E. You get Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6 on these two. Why? Because this one came out with the original M5 chip. The M5 chips that are in these ones has been enhanced, which is the newer one. That's why they're on pre-order. If you go up to the Pro or the Max, you will get Wi-Fi 7 or Bluetooth 6. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's just a timing thing that Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6 weren't available for the chip when it was first released on the M5. Ports we've talked about. You can see there. This is where it starts revealing itself, right? One USB 3 port, one USB 2 port. Whereas you've got 2 Thunderbolt ports, and the MacBook Pro has 3 Thunderbolt ports, which is super handy. Touch ID, Apple Pay, video calling, audio calling, just all the standard stuff. Power and battery. Yeah, this is where your Neo's not going to quite cut it. So 11 hours of wireless web. I mean, it's still okay if you're a student and you're using it for a day. Hopefully you're not at university or college for more than 11 hours a day. But you know what? You're on the bus, you're in the library, you're hanging out after work and you after school and you want to do some stuff. And you only get a 20-watt power adapter as opposed to the 40-watt or the 70-watt. So you get a smaller battery, a smaller power adapter, and much less battery life. It is something to consider. So it's why you would go up. So there it is. There's your Neo versus your Air versus your Pro. Now, the reason I said that the Air is good, but as soon as you start adding to it, you probably want to go with a Pro, is because you can see there at $1,099 versus $1,699. You might be thinking, oh, well, then I should definitely go the Air and just beef it up a bit to get it to that. But let's do that. Let's do that, shall we? So if we look at the difference here, you've got the 10-core CPU, 16 gig of RAM, and 1 terabyte of storage. So let's pretend we're buying this one. We're going to pre-order the Air, and we're going to make it match those specs. Well, for starters, you get the smaller screen. You can't do much about that. You get a screen that's 0.6 inches smaller. If you want the colors, of course, you get the different colors, but let's just say you went midnight to make it comparable. So your MacBook Air. So first thing you've got to do is you've got to upgrade to the faster, so the better chip, the 10-core chip that's in the Pro. So now we're at $1199, right? Cool. Okay, we're good. We've already got the 16 gig of RAM, so that's okay, but let's up our storage to the 1 terabyte. Oh, that's another $200. Yeah, right. Okay. Now what are we at? All right, we'll come down here. Power adapter. Oh, we've only got the 40-watt power adapter. What if we want the 70-watt? Okay, or another $20. All right, we're doing okay here. We're still not up there. Let's not get a Final Touch license. Let's not get a Logic Pro license. Still funny that they're still selling them. I thought there would be a subscribe to Apple Creator Studio there instead, but no, they're still selling, which is actually a good sign. For those that just want to have and keep their own, it's actually a good sign. I got no trade-in, and I'm just going to buy it outright. So we're up to $1,319. So look, it's still going to be better, but you're now spending $1,319. And remember, you still get the slightly less good screen, the less ports. So you get one less Thunderbolt port. You don't get HDMI. You don't get an SD card reader. And you don't get all of the Pro bells and whistles. So look, you can make your MacBook Air almost Pro, but you've gone from $1,099 up to $1,319. So you're spending quite a bit more to get your Air up to the level of a Pro. So that's where I say, once you start speccing up an Air, I would definitely go Pro. Wait, did we do the? Yeah, we did. We did the terabyte. Yeah. So I would definitely sort of try and get that extra few $100s for the Pro, because the Pro is just going to last a lot longer and be a lot better resale value as well. Speaking of resale value, do not forget that it's a great time to check out your Apple Refurbished. So usually what you can do is type in refurbished Mac, and you can jump in here and check out all of these designed for an encore. So you can come in here and you can look at the different products they have, and you can pick up pretty good deals. So check this out, a 13-inch MacBook Air with the 10-core, 8-core M4 chip. For $759, that's actually a pretty good deal. So yeah, you can, at various times, you'll find different things. If you go to Mac here, you can check out all the refurbished Macs that are available. So you can see there, they're quite good prices. And anything M3 or M4 is great. And you're going to get it for a much lower price if you pick up the M4 or the M3 now. So yeah, all the different Airs refurbished, and Apple Refurbished comes with the same warranty that you'd get with your new Mac, But again, it's just been pre-loved, pre-owned. So it's a good opportunity if you wanted to pick up something like $759 for this one. What does it come with? You do have to be careful with these because they used to have lower specs on them. So where does it tell you the specs? Where's your specifications? So yeah, 256 gigabytes SSD. So you have to be careful to watch out for that because your older Macs did have a base level. But yeah, like originally released March 2025. So this thing is a year old, not even. And it is a great thing to check out. You can also go to Amazon. If you choose to go through Amazon, do me a solid and use the gear guide that's linked in the description of this video, or just go to studiolivetoday.com/gear. That's where you'll find my gear guide, all the stuff that I use, all the different Macs and iPads and monitors and iPhones and audio interfaces, microphones, speakers, everything I use here in the home studio. It is there on the gear guide. And if you go enter through Amazon for whatever country it is from the gear guide, then whatever you're buying, they will break off a chunk and send it my way. So they are affiliate links, meaning that they will be making a payment to me, but you don't pay anymore. So do check those out over at the Gear Guide. And Thomas is right on the money there and already letting us know. Yeah, refurbs are a good deal sometimes. Buy your secondhand stuff. Look, buyer beware. Refurb is great, and Amazon's sort of reconditioned, pre-owned is good, because Apple and Amazon will stand by their products. They will give you warranties. You can return them. You can get support if something goes wrong. If you buy from Craigslist, if you buy from Facebook Marketplace, if you buy from eBay, there is no guarantee that they are coming from a reputable seller. There's no guarantee that they haven't fallen off the back of a truck, and you'll get a knock on your door from the police at midnight saying, we believe you're in possession of a stolen MacBook. You do not want that. So buyer beware. I would, unless you know the person you're buying from, unless it's like me, if I was selling it, or if you're like, you know someone that's selling something and you can trust them and you can make them stand by their products, then that's fine. Everything else though, I would take it very carefully, because you never quite know if they're going to send it, if it's the right thing, if it's been at the bottom of an ocean, if it's actually going to work for a long period of time. So do take care. Alrighty. Yes, I'll just see if there's any other. Yes, you can buy a USB-C hub for more ports. Yeah, absolutely, or a Thunderbolt, and I recommend that. So even just a basic thing that like I use, which is just a USB-C powered multi-port adapter, that's going to be fine for a lot of this sort of stuff. So the same with same thing you'll use for an iPad or an iPhone, you can use that for your MacBook too. So you can add more ports, but remember, the port is only going to be as fast as the port that you've got there. So if it's a USB-C port and you put a Thunderbolt adapter in there, it ain't going to be no Thunderbolt. It's going to be a USB-C at whatever the speed is. Worried about the 8 gig of RAM for Tahoe and whatever's next. Apple makes, yeah, exactly. That's exactly right, Dan. I would be very worried with that. The longevity of, so macOS Las Vegas, no, what are they? They always do areas in Northern California. I don't know enough of them. But yeah, the version of macOS in 3, 4, and 5 years' time, running on an A18 Pro with only 8 gigabytes of RAM and only like a 6-core and 5-core processor, I think that, yeah, you're right. Especially when they're doing things like liquid glass and adding more sort of visual effects and things, I think that's going to make things a little bit more challenging for you. Yeah. Thank you. If you want to hit the thumbs up button, make sure that you do that. It does. It desperately, it's a needy sucker, that like button. It desperately needs your attention. Before we finish off, I know this was all about MacBook, and hopefully you're now completely, fully aware of all the different options you have for your Macs. They did release a few other things. They released the new iPad Air M4, sorry. Why am I not talking about this? Well, it's because it's the same as the M3 iPad Air. It is still my recommendation. It is still the sweet spot. The same thing. If you do the compare button here for this one, it's the same thing as your MacBook. You've now got your Pro, your Air, and your regular. And it does the same sort of thing, right? It's from $349, $599, $999. So this one here is your sweet spot. Again, try to get at least your 512 gig of storage, but you can get as little as 128 in fact on this one. Do not get that. I do not know why they still sell the Air with 128. Get 256. And then again, it's the same as, the Pro argument is by the time you start speccing up your Air it gets pretty close to the Pro. Again, the only real difference is you don't get Thunderbolt, you just get USB-C, which is USB 3 speeds on your Air, and the cameras are not as proficient, and the screen is not quite the same, and slightly lower CPU, because you're the M4 versus the M5 now. So your MacBook Air, look, it's still my recommendation for that middle space. It'll run GarageBand amazingly. It'll run Logic Pro perfectly well. If you're using Logic Pro at its absolute limits, then maybe you'd want the extra RAM and the extra processing power you get from the M5, from the Pro. But outside of that, for most of your users, for 80, 90% of you, the MacBook Air is the good, happy medium. The other thing that was released is the new iPhone. So yeah, the iPhone 17e. And again, why we're not talking about this is because it's not going to be for a lot of folks that are creators. But if for whatever reason you are still on an Android and you're part of the ecosystem through Mac or iPad, I think this is the phone for you. Again, it's that value proposition at $599 that's actually pretty darn good. And it's better than, it's basically the specs, almost the specs of the iPhone Air that came out last year, but not with all the thinness. So it's got better battery life. But now that it's got MagSafe charging, still only got the one camera on there, so you're not going to get like the Pro camera side of things. But it's the A19 chip. You might think, oh, that's a better chip than the A. No, the A18 Pro is still better than the A19. But this is last year's phone chip, just in a slightly cheaper package. No dynamic island, of course, but that might be a positive for some folks. But yeah, it is. It's going to be, I mentioned it the other day, probably a good second phone or a good phone for your mum, dad, children, teenagers, because they're not walking around with $1,500 phone in their pocket for $599. It's a pretty good deal. And last but not least, let's talk about the studio displays. You've got your studio display and your studio display XDR. Again, why am I not mentioning these a heap? Because if you need one of these, you probably already know it. You've probably already ordered one. But for $1,599 for the low end and $3,299 for the high end, this is for your professionals. This is for people that need full-on, proper color reproduction. The cost doesn't really matter for them. It's just a business. It's just an expense of running their business. That's who this is for. As far as a 5K display goes, LG is who I recommend. I use LG monitors, and I even bought an LG OLED TV because I love my LG monitor so much. So I use LG. BenQ make good stuff. Asus, Acer, like there's a bunch. Samsung. There's a bunch of different companies that make good quality 5K displays. And without going into detail, they are definitely less than $1,599. In fact, let's just do a quick look. If we just go to Amazon and we check out the LG 5K display, we'll get rid of that. Don't need to show you my address. So LG 5K monitor 27. So a comparative LG, well, that's 4K. There's a lot of 4K. You've got to make sure you find the 5K. So let's see. So lots of 4K. There we go. So Asus, $729 for a ProArt display, 27-inch 5K HDR professional monitor. So basically almost the exact same specs as the $1,599 monitor that we just showed you from Apple, but yeah, significantly lower in price. So you can definitely get yourself something cheaper. Apple will probably get a lot of new customers with the 17e and the Mac Neo. In a few years, they might upgrade to better gear. 100%. That's the play, isn't it? That's exactly it. Because what have Apple done? Apple have become a $3 trillion company by really servicing the high end. Then they kind of brought out the Air and some of these sort of lower end spec and reduced the price of, like, say, the entry level Mac, so that they got people like me, your mid range, that said Mac was always too expensive. I started buying Macs. I always used iPads and iPhones, but then I started buying Macs. And now the people that will walk into the phone store and choose the $600 Android because the cheapest iPhone's $1,000, now they've got a choice too. So that's the play here with all of this stuff. And the same with the MacBook. You walk in there, you've never owned a Mac before because you can't afford it. You can't spend no $1,000 or even $1,500 or $2,000. And then you see a MacBook for $599. I just really hope, the reason I'm getting the message out there about the Neo and getting the upgraded version is I really think it's worth the extra $100. I know $599 sounds like a great price point, but in 2 years' time, I think you'll regret the extra frustration of not having Touch ID and only having 256 gig of storage will definitely annoy you, and it will be worth saving up the extra $100. So do not buy that. Do not buy the earlier version, the lower end version. So there you have it. Everything you need to know about these new products announced by Apple. Your displays, your phones, your iPad, and all the MacBooks you can handle. You can also use a Mac Mini. The Mac Mini is still fabulous and still out there. The Mac Studio is a great option if you've got a home studio and you want to hook it up to a nice 5K display from LG or anyone else. And again, if you are buying anything, I would encourage and just hope that you would check out my gear guide, because everything that I use is there. All the different gear here in the studio, in the home studio, is on the gear guide. StudioLiveToday.com/gear. You can go and check out everything there. On your way out, if you wouldn't mind doing a couple of things for me, hit the thumbs up button. That always helps when other people try to find this sort of content. It'll be out there for them. Leave a comment if you're here on the replay. Let me know your thoughts, because we had a great chat with folks who were here during the live stream. But I don't want to leave out our wonderful replay viewers. So if you're catching up on the replay, hello to you. Leave your comments, your questions, anything else you'd like to ask down there. But until next time, folks. This has been Studio Live Today, the Creator Town Hall. I'm Pete Johns, and I like to say something at the end of every show, and that is be kind to yourself this week, be kind to others, keep creating, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.